The void between star systems was never truly empty. Captain Alex Voss stared out through the reinforced viewport of the Iron Dawn, the hull of the Terran battleship vibrating faintly with the hum of its antimatter cores. Stars streaked in silent lines beyond the reinforced glass. Distant suns giving their quiet warmth to planets too far away to matter, yet all of it seemed to shrink under the shadow of what was coming. Ports had been clear. The Vrax Dominion's armada was moving through the neutral sector. 50 capital ships, 300 escort vessels, their combined firepower enough to flatten an entire solar system. They were confident, arrogant, and cruel in ways that only an empire unchallenged could afford. "They think they own the stars," murmured Voss to himself, his fingers drumming a slow, steady rhythm against the console. The bridge was quiet, crew members focused and tense, each one aware that their commander was not just thinking strategy, he was thinking survival. The weight of command had settled on him like gravity itself. "Captain," Lieutenant Rhee called softly, her voice cutting through the low hum of machinery. "Sensors indicate a Vrax reconnaissance wing approaching. No engagement yet, but they're scanning our convoy." Voss's gaze did not leave the viewport. The tiny blips of the scouts moved like insects against the void. Arrogant in their numbers, unaware that humans had a stubbornness no sensor could quantify. "Prepare the convoy for evasive maneuvers," he said, "and alert the engineers. I want all systems at optimal output if they want war. They're about to find out humans don't fight like anyone expects." He paused, and for a moment he let himself breathe. The deep void of space had a way of making a man feel small and, yet paradoxically capable of impossible things. He remembered his father, long gone, telling him that courage wasn't absence of fear, it was acting despite it. A lesson learned on dusty Earth battlefields now echoed across the stars. The crew moved efficiently. Their movements were choreographed, almost instinctive. The human mind thrived under pressure, and Terran ingenuity could turn desperation into an advantage. Voss felt the familiar, quiet stirrings of faith, the kind that didn't need sermons. Only the unspoken belief that some intelligence greater than himself had steered him through dangers before, and might do so again. "Sir," said Tactical Officer Merrick, leaning over a holomap, "the Vrax scouts are broadcasting." "There." Laughing. "Direct communication. They call us insignificant. They think they can mock us, and that we will flinch," Voss finished. There was a cold edge in his voice, a steel tempered by years of narrow victories and calculated risks. "Let them laugh. Louder they are, the quieter they'll be when we strike." The Vrax signals streamed across the bridge, alien glyphs that twisted in their displays like living shadows. One message repeated, translated roughly, "You are ants beneath our boot. Prepare to be crushed." Voss leaned closer to the viewport, his eyes narrowing. The human heart had always carried a stubborn spark. They had survived plagues, wars, and disasters that could have ended entire civilizations in here. In the cold void, they would survive again. Not because of superior numbers, but because humans fought with minds and wills that refused to yield. He tapped the command panel. "Come send back our answer." His fingers paused briefly over the console, then pressed the keys with deliberate intent. No threats, no arrogance, just one line. "We are ready." The silence that followed was thicker than the void outside. The crew shifted uneasily, sensing the tension in their captain. Even in the cold, mechanical heart of a warship, fear and resolve danced together. Voss felt it to an unspoken dialogue between what they could do and what they must do. A single scout vessel moved closer, its angular frame cutting through the starlight like a knife. It blinked once, a flash of alien recognition, perhaps amusement, and then, just as quickly, it disappeared behind a moon-sized shadow of a derelict station. Voss exhaled slowly, letting the tension flow from his shoulders into the floor beneath him. "All right," he said, voice low but carrying across the bridge. "This is the first step. Eyes sharp, mind sharper. The Dominion thinks they are gods here. Let's show them humans are something else entirely." He turned to his crew, allowing a small, tight smile to crack his otherwise stoic expression. "They've never met someone willing to fight when the odds are impossible. They're about to meet me." Outside, the stars watched in silence, indifferent witnesses to the fragile courage of a single human ship against the might of an empire. Somewhere in the dark, A faint glimmer hinted at possibility, a chance that faith, cunning, and human will might bend the universe, even if just a little. And as the first shadow of the Vrax Armada stretched toward them, the Iron Dawn began to move, not with hesitation, but with the steady, relentless certainty of a force that would not yield. The neutral sector trembled beneath the silent march of the Vrax Dominion. On the holomap, 50 capital ships glowed like malevolent stars, a lattice of destruction converging toward a single point, the human convoy. The Iron Dawn floated at its center, a lone steel defiance against the impossible. Captain Alex Voss paced the bridge, boots echoing against the reinforced metal floor. Every nerve in his body thrummed with tension, yet he moved with purpose, each step a metronome of resolve. He could feel the crew watching, waiting for him to anchor their courage. And like always, he would give it not with speeches, but with action. Sir Merrick's voice broke the charged silence. They've deployed scanning drones. Every signature of our fleet is under observation. They're cataloging, analyzing, maybe already deciding which ships to obliterate first. Voss exhaled. The Dominion had arrogance, yes, but it also had calculation. Their numbers gave them confidence, but numbers had never defeated humans when the odds seemed insurmountable. Let them watch, he said. We'll see more than they expect. Outside the viewport, the first of the Vrax frigates appeared in full relief. They moved with coordinated precision, their hulls bristling with weapon banks and energy emitters. The void itself seemed to tremble as their engines rippled space-time, a silent drumbeat of dominance. Sir, we're reading unusual energy fluctuations, Ree noted, her brow furrowed. They're testing us. Some kind of pulse. Not weaponized yet. But Voss didn't interrupt. He had seen this before, the alien method of intimidation. A test, a shadow strike, meant to rattle confidence before the true attack. Humans were tempered in the fire of adversity. The Dominion would learn that soon. Target the closest frigates, Voss ordered. We're not firing. Just tracking. Let's show them patience is also a weapon. The crew obeyed, eyes sharp, fingers poised. Even in stillness, tension became kinetic, radiating from every console. Then the first strike came, a wave of charged plasma, fired not in earnest, but to probe, to force reaction. It danced harmlessly across the convoy, missing by kilometers, yet the pressure was undeniable. Explosions lit distant shadows like strobe lights across the dark canvas of space. Voss's jaw tightened. Status report? Convoy shields holding? Merrick replied. No losses yet. They're testing. Trying to bait a response? Voss's mind turned, calculating, running through strategies, contingencies, human ingenuity at full throttle. His eyes moved over the ship, schematics mentally. Graviton arrays, antimatter cores, singularity projectors. They think their numbers will scare us. They don't know what humans are capable of when cornered. He walked to the viewport, gaze fixed on the closest Vrax cruiser. Its alien hull gleamed coldly, reflecting distant starlight like a mirror of death. He wondered, did the pilots even understand fear? Could they imagine the quiet, burning resolve of a human captain facing annihilation? In a small, almost private moment, he murmured, God. If you're watching, I hope they understand what they're up against. Not as prayer, not as supplication, but as acknowledgement of the unseen thread that had guided him this far. The first collision of wills came in a sudden, violent flare. One of the Vrax frigates charged a full-strength disruptor pulse. The crew tensed, alarms shrieking across the bridge. Lights flickered as energy rippled through the hull, though the Iron Dawn absorbed it, shields holding firm. Voss's voice cut through the chaos. Return fire. Target their propulsion array, not the hull. Disable, don't destroy. Ree's hands danced over the console. Copy that, sir. Firing. The pulse of human weaponry erupted silently, a concentrated beam of particle disruption that struck the frigate's engines. The Vrax ship's acceleration faltered, and it drifted helplessly, a glowing testament to Terran precision. A murmur passed among the Dominion fleet, an alien whisper of disbelief. They had never seen humans react with such calm, such certainty. Voss exhaled slowly. He felt the familiar tug of something larger than strategy, something beyond skill. Survival had always depended on it, a subtle hand-guiding timing, a thread of providence in the chaos. He didn't claim it, but he acknowledged it. Not luck. The battle escalated. The Vrax frigates pressed forward, numerical superiority pressing like a tidal wave. They expected panic, disorder, fear. Humans offered none. Instead, the Iron Dawn maneuvered with precision that seemed impossible for a single ship surrounded on all sides. Tactical brilliance, yes, but also intuition, the human instinct for survival, honed over centuries of impossible odds. A sudden transmission interrupted the tension. Alien glyphs streamed across the main view. "You are fools. You cannot survive this." Voss's lips curved, almost imperceptibly. "Perhaps," he said softly, "but fools with stubborn hearts can topple empires." The first Vrax destroyer tried to flank the convoy, firing its plasma turrets in a lethal arc. The Iron Dawn responded in kind, not with raw firepower, but with cunning. Gravity wells erupted from the ship's rear projectors, bending space around the destroyer. The alien vessel twisted violently, engines screaming as its own momentum betrayed it. It collided with one of its own escorts, a silent implosion that left no debris, only empty, glowing void where arrogance once floated. Silence fell brief, tense, pregnant with the realization that humans were not just reacting, they were orchestrating, manipulating physics and strategy in ways the Dominion had never anticipated. Voss turned to his crew, calm amid the storm. "They laughed when they saw us," he said, voice quiet but filled with weight, "and yet here we are. Let's remind them that laughter dies first in the shadow of Terran steel." Outside, the stars seemed to lean closer as if the universe itself paused to watch this defiance. Somewhere in the dark, a human heart beat steady against impossible odds. Somewhere an alien mind registered fear for the first time. The fleet's flagship loomed in the distance, massive, arrogant, untouched thus far. And in the quiet that followed the initial clash, Voss whispered to no one in particular. "They don't know what's coming. Neither do they know who they're facing." The neutral sector trembled beneath the silent march of the Vrax Dominion. On the holomap, 50 capital ships glowed like malevolent stars. A lattice of destruction converging toward a single point. The human convoy. The Iron Dawn floated at its center, a lone steel defiance against the impossible. Captain Alex Voss paced the bridge, boots echoing against the reinforced metal floor. Every nerve in his body thrummed with tension, yet he moved with purpose, each step a metronome of resolve. He could feel the crew watching, waiting for him to anchor their courage. And like always, he would give it not with speeches, but with action. Sir Merrick's voice broke the charged silence. "They've deployed scanning drones. Every signature of our fleet is under observation. They're cataloging, analyzing, maybe already deciding which ships to obliterate first." Voss exhaled. The Dominion had arrogance, yes, but it also had calculation. Their numbers gave them confidence, but numbers had never defeated humans when the odds seemed insurmountable. "Let them watch," he said. "We'll see more than they expect." Outside the viewport, the first of the Vrax frigates appeared in full relief. They moved with coordinated precision, their hulls bristling with weapon banks and energy emitters. The void itself seemed to tremble as their engines rippled space-time, a silent drumbeat of dominance. "Sir, we're reading unusual energy fluctuations," Ree noted. Her brow furrowed. "They're testing us. Some kind of pulse. Not weaponized yet," but Voss didn't interrupt. He had seen this before, the alien method of intimidation. A test, a shadow strike, meant to rattle confidence before the true attack. Humans were tempered in the fire of adversity. The Dominion would learn that soon. "Target the closest frigates," Voss ordered. "We're not firing, just tracking. Let's show them patience is also a weapon." The crew obeyed, eyes sharp, fingers poised. Even in stillness, tension became kinetic, radiating from every console. Then the first strike came, a wave of charged plasma, fired not in earnest, but to probe, to force reaction. It danced harmlessly across the convoy, missing by kilometers, yet the pressure was undeniable. Explosions lit distant shadows like strobe lights across the dark canvas of space. Voss's jaw tightened. "Status report. Convoy shields holding," Merrick replied. "No losses yet. They're testing." She's trying to bait a response. Voss's mind turned, calculating, running through strategies, contingencies, human ingenuity at full throttle. His eyes moved over the ship's schematics mentally. Graviton arrays, antimatter cores, singularity projectors. I think their numbers will scare us. They don't know what humans are capable of when cornered. He walked to the viewport, gaze fixed on the closest Vrax cruiser. Its alien hull gleamed coldly, reflecting distant starlight like a mirror of death. He wondered, did the pilots even understand fear? In a small, almost private moment, he murmured, God, if you're watching, I hope they understand what they're up against. Not as prayer, not as supplication, but as acknowledgement of the unseen thread that had guided him this far. The first collision of wills came in a sudden, violent flare. One of the Vrax frigates charged a full-strength disruptor pulse. Dak! The crew tensed, alarms shrieking across the bridge. Lights flickered as energy rippled through the hull, though the Iron Dawn absorbed it, shields holding firm. Voss's voice cut through the chaos. Return fire! Target their propulsion array, not the hull. Disable. Don't destroy. Rhee's hands danced over the console. Copy that, sir. Firing. The pulse of human weaponry erupted silently, a concentrated beam of particle disruption that struck the frigate's engines. The Vrax ship's acceleration faltered, and it drifted helplessly, a glowing testament to Terran precision. A murmur passed among the Dominion fleet, an alien whisper of disbelief. They had never seen humans react with such calm, such certainty. Voss exhaled slowly. He felt the familiar tug of something larger than strategy, something beyond skill. Survival had always depended on a subtle hand-guiding timing, a thread of providence in the chaos. He didn't claim it, but he acknowledged it. Not luck. Someone wanted me to live. The battle escalated. The Vrax frigates pressed forward, numerical superiority pressing like a tidal wave. They expected panic, disorder, fear. Humans offered none. Instead, the Iron Dawn maneuvered with precision that seemed impossible for a single ship surrounded on all sides. Tactical brilliance, yes, but also intuition, the human instinct for survival, honed over centuries of impossible odds. A sudden transmission interrupted the tension. Alien glyphs streamed across the main view. You are fools. You cannot survive this. Voss's lips curved, almost imperceptibly. Perhaps, he said softly, but fools with stubborn hearts can topple empires. The first Vrax destroyer tried to flank the convoy, firing its plasma turrets in a lethal arc. The Iron Dawn responded in kind, not with raw firepower, but with cunning. Gravity wells erupted from the ship's rear projectors, bending space around the destroyer. The alien vessel twisted violently, engines screaming, as its own momentum betrayed it. It collided with one of its own escorts, a silent implosion that left no debris, only empty, glowing void where arrogance once floated. Silence fell brief, tense, pregnant with the realization that humans were not just reacting, they were orchestrating, manipulating physics and strategy in ways the Dominion had never anticipated. Voss turned to his crew, calm amid the storm. They laughed when they saw us, he said, voice quiet but filled with weight. And yet here we are. Let's remind them that laughter dies first in the shadow of Terran steel. Outside, the stars seemed to lean closer, as if the universe itself paused to watch this defiance. Somewhere in the dark, a human heart beat steady against impossible odds. Somewhere an alien mind registered fear for the first time. The fleet's flagship loomed in the distance, massive, arrogant, untouched thus far. And in the quiet that followed the initial clash, Voss whispered, to no one in particular, they don't know what's coming. And neither do they know who they're facing. The Iron Dawn glided through the black canvas of space like a predator aware of its prey. Captain Alex Voss stood at the center of the bridge, eyes sharp, mind racing through calculations that no alien could have predicted. His crew moved like extensions of his thought, each one knowing instinctively when to act, when to hesitate, when to trust in the unspoken, both human ingenuity and something beyond, some invisible guidance that had carried them this far. Sir Merrick said, leaning over the graviton control console. The first wave of the Dominion fleet is approaching attack range. They're coordinating. Synchronized weapons discharge across 30 ships. Voss didn't flinch. His fingers traced the edge of the viewport as if drawing strength from the distant stars. He imagined the scales of the universe, the vast unfeeling expanse pressing against the fragile pulse of life aboard his ship. And yet he also felt the quiet presence that had always guided him through impossible odds. "Good," he said simply. "Let's see how well numbers withstand creativity." Outside, the Vrax fleet surged forward, a wall of steel and plasma, confidence carved into every angle of their hulls. They thought their size alone could crush a single human battleship. They were about to learn that humans measured not in tonnage, but in audacity. "Deploy gravitational singularities," Voss ordered, his voice calm but absolute. "Let them feel the silence before destruction." The crew acted almost in unison, their hands a symphony of coordination. Through the Iron Dawn's rear projectors, miniature singularities bloomed like black flowers in the void. They drifted silently toward the approaching Vrax fleet, invisible at first, their pull undetectable until it was too late. The first destroyer passed too close. Its sensors couldn't detect the subtle warp in space. Then, a ripple, almost imperceptible, like water bending around a stone. The ship's engine stuttered, its hull groaned. And in a moment, the destroyer vanished into a pinprick of darkness, pulled into the void created by the singularity. Not an explosion, not a scream, just disappearance. Silence answered. "Status?" Voss asked, voice measured. "Destroyer 1, gone." "Sensors confirm nothing remains," Merrick reported, all lacing his tone. It was erased without fire." "Good," Voss said. He turned his gaze to the bridge, meeting the eyes of his crew. "The Dominion laughs at power, but power alone is only noise. They haven't seen thought, ingenuity, and stubborn will combine yet." From the corner of the bridge, Ree leaned over her console, scanning rapidly. "Sir, the flagship. It's adjusting its course. They've noticed the singularities." The Dominion realizes the scale of Voss interrupted, calm but with the weight of inevitability. Then it's time they understood. He walked to the weapons console, each step deliberate, each movement a signal of certainty. He was not afraid, not because he was invincible, but because he trusted in human ingenuity. In the brilliance that came from desperation, in the subtle guidance that sometimes appeared when survival demanded it, the Vrax flagship loomed like a dark cathedral of war, its hull reflecting the faint glimmer of distant stars. Confidence radiated from its alien lines, arrogance carved in angles and turrets. It had never seen humans before. It had never imagined a single ship could bend the laws of physics with precision, could orchestrate destruction in silence. Voss activated the singularity projectors at full scale. The black voids rippled outward, pulling smaller ships into their invisible gravity wells. Collisions echoed silently through the fleet as escorts smashed into each other, entire formations disappearing before the Dominion could react. The bridge of the Iron Dawn vibrated faintly as if space itself were shivering under the weight of human audacity. Voss felt it not fear, not excitement, but the steady pulse of control, of knowing that the impossible was not only possible, it was happening. "Sir," Merrick said, voice tight, "they're trying to regroup, but they're losing cohesion. Entire squadrons are disappearing. It's catastrophic." Voss allowed a small smile. "Not luck," he murmured under his breath. "Something else. Someone else." The Vrax flagship tried to fire weapons lancing through space, but human strategy had anticipated it. The Iron Dawn weaved through the void, placing singularities at precise coordinates, bending trajectory, disorienting the enemy.
Ow.
One by one, the flagship's escorts faltered, unable to maintain formation in the invisible chaos. Voss walked slowly across the bridge, the hum of machinery underfoot grounding him in the moment. His eyes scanned the holomap, noting each disappearance, each collapse of the Dominion's superiority. He allowed himself a fleeting thought. This is what courage looks like, not blind bravery, not mere firepower. Human will, sharpened like a blade, is enough. He remembered Earth, remembered dusty training fields and war games, remembered victories that seemed impossible at the time. And he understood, suddenly. The same stubborn determination that had carried humanity through millennia was alive in every maneuver. Every calculation, every heartbeat aboard the Iron Dawn. Then, without warning, the flagship shuddered. Energy rippled across its hull. The singularities had pulled it off course, twisted its engines, destabilized its shields. For the first time, the Dominion fleet could feel doubt. Confidence faltered. The arrogance that had carried them through countless victories wavered like a candle in wind. Voss stepped back from the console, letting the bridge absorb the moment. Around him, the crew exhaled collectively. Silence filled the space, heavy with awe and disbelief. Even in the mechanical heart of war, humanity's creativity had carved a victory, and yet the captain did not celebrate. He never celebrated until the battle was truly over. Because in the void, in the heart of impossibility, the next moment could always bring death. Voss allowed himself one glance at the stars beyond the viewport. "Someone wanted me to see this," he whispered. Not a prayer, not a demand, just acknowledgement of the quiet intelligence threading the universe together. A witness to human courage. Outside, the Dominion fleet reeled. They had mocked, they had laughed, they had assumed superiority. And now, as the first waves of singularity silently claimed entire squadrons, they began to wonder if they had underestimated the unpredictable, unrelenting force of humanity. The void pulsed with imminent violence. Captain Alex Voss stood at the viewport of the Iron Dawn, eyes narrowing as the massive Vrax flagship began to shudder under the unseen pull of the singularities. Its hull, once a monument to arrogance, now quivered like a living thing confronting an unknown predator. Sir Merrick reported, voice tight, "The flagship is powering up a primary counterstrike. Energy levels are off the charts. If it hits the convoy, we survive." Voss cut in, voice steady. "We always survive." That's not arrogance, it's reality. The bridge crew absorbed the words, letting the certainty of their captain anchor them. Fear was present, yes, an alien shadow that humans felt as acutely as any starship could sense gravity, but it was tempered by trust, by experience, by the knowledge that courage could bend odds, even when logic screamed against it. Outside, the Vrax flagship unleashed its first salvo. A wall of superheated plasma erupted toward the convoy, arcs of lethal fire slicing through the void. The crew of the Iron Dawn braced as shields flared, energy cascading across the hull in streaks of blue and gold. "Evasive maneuvers," Voss commanded. "Divert all auxiliary power to propulsion arrays. Let's dance." The Iron Dawn shifted, rolling through the void with the precision of a predator, engines screaming in silent bursts that bent gravity around them. The Vrax weapons overshot, massive plasma bolts streaking past empty space, detonating against the debris of their own destroyed vessels. Voss allowed himself a brief glance at the holomap. Singularity projectors were firing in calculated arcs, invisible ripples tugging at the enemy ships. Entire squadrons faltered as gravitational fields twisted their course, sending them careening into one another. The Dominion had counted on overwhelming firepower, but human ingenuity was something numbers could not quantify. "Sir, the flagship is compensating for the singularities. It's adjusting its trajectory and weapons output," Rhys said. Her hands moved over the console with rapid precision. "If it hits again, the convoy might not survive the next strike." Voss's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure it doesn't hit anything." "Activate the reverse field projectors. Full power." A subtle hum filled the ship as the fields engaged, bending incoming energy around the Iron Dawn and dispersing it harmlessly into space. The flagship's plasma struck nothing but warped void, a testament to human foresight and improvisation. The crew exhaled collectively, relief mingling with tension. Voss walked down the center of the bridge, feeling the weight of command in every vibration of the ship, in every anxious glance of his crew. He understood that fear could not be eradicated, could only be managed, honed, and converted into action. "Sir," Merrick said, voice low, "the flagship. It's recalibrating its defenses. It's learning, adapting." "It's too late," Voss finished. "Human minds adapt faster. It may learn, but it will never anticipate the creativity born from desperation." And with that, he tapped a series of commands into the console. The singularities shifted, their gravitational pull synchronized with the Iron Dawn's trajectory. They slipped past the convoy, invisible fingers tugging at the enemy like the quiet hand of fate. One by one, Vrax destroyers were pulled from formation, drifting helplessly as the flagship's shields faltered under the cumulative stress. Voss allowed a rare, fleeting smile. "Not luck," he murmured to the empty bridge. "Someone wanted me to see this." The flagship's energy levels spiked, weapons charging with desperate intensity. Voss knew what was coming. The humans were not invincible, they were relentless. And now the Vrax flagship would confront that relentlessness head-on. "Prepare Singularity Wave 3, Voss ordered. "Target the flagship's engines and weapon arrays. We don't want just survival. We want them to understand why arrogance dies in silence." Marique and Ree moved in perfect synchrony, eyes wide, but hands steady. The Iron Dawn's projectors activated, miniature black holes blooming in the void like unseen specters. The flagship twisted violently as the gravitational wells tugged at its massive frame, engines flaring erratically. Its weapons discharged wildly, scattering energy into the void rather than the convoy. Voss felt it in his chest, a thrill not of victory, but of defiance. Against overwhelming odds, humans had found a way not only to survive, but to dominate. Their ingenuity, courage, and resolve had transformed despair into opportunity. The Vrax flagship tried to retreat, to regroup, but the singularities held it fast, invisible chains tightening around its hull. Panic rippled through the alien command. "The first hint of fear ever felt by the Dominion in this sector, sir," Ree whispered, almost in awe. "They're realizing we're not ordinary. They're afraid." Voss's gaze remained fixed on the viewport, on the trembling monolith of alien power. "They should be," he said quietly, "'cause humans fight differently. We don't yield. We don't surrender. We create, adapt, and endure. And sometimes, we win silently." The flagship's hull groaned under the stress. Energy shields flared and collapsed in a cascade of sparks and alien glyphs. The first of its weapons banks melted under the subtle, precise pull of the singularities. Entire fleets of escort ships drifted aimlessly, disoriented, as the Dominion's formation fractured like fragile glass under pressure. Voss exhaled slowly, the tension leaving him in a rush. "This is the turning point," he murmured. "They laughed, they mocked, and now, they will remember the human name." He turned to his crew, allowing a glimmer of pride to shine through his calm exterior. "Hold steady," he said. "We are the calm in the storm. The next move is ours to make." Outside, the stars remained silent, indifferent witnesses to human courage. Yet, in the quiet of space, in the invisible pull of gravitational forces and human will, a subtle truth had emerged. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, and it would pay the price for that arrogance. The Iron Dawn hummed with focused energy, the ship itself a living testament to human ingenuity. Captain Alex Voss stood at the center of the bridge, calm in a storm of stars and destruction. Outside, the Vrax flagship twisted violently under the pull of the singularities, its massive hull groaning like some ancient beast being torn apart by invisible claws. "Sir," Merrick said, voice taut with disbelief and tension, "the flagship's energy core is destabilizing. If we maintain this trajectory, its weapons could fail entirely or worse, self-destruct." Voss's eyes narrowed, calculating. He did not flinch, did not hesitate. Humans thrived on impossible odds, and this was no exception. "Hold the singularities at current coordinates," he said. "We don't want it to explode yet. Let's see what desperation looks like when faced with humans." The bridge fell silent except for the low hum of machinery and the occasional click of a console. Every crew member understood the stakes. They had already altered the course of history in this sector, yet even victory demanded precision. Outside, the Vrax flagship attempted to fire again, this time with concentrated energy bolts aimed directly at the Iron Dawn. Its weapons flared like suns erupting, lighting the void with deadly arcs of energy. "Shields holding at 92%, re-reported. Diverting power to auxiliary fields." Voss's hand hovered over the command panel. It didn't flinch as the bolts passed mere meters from the hull, scattering harmlessly into warped space. Humans fought differently. They didn't rely solely on brute force. They fought with intelligence, creativity, and courage that could bend physics itself. The singularities pulsed, each a quiet, invisible hammer striking at the flagship's engines and weapon arrays. Its massive thrusters faltered, output fluctuating wildly. The crew inside must have felt panic for the first time in their lives. The Dominion had never known fear. And now, faced with a single human ship, it coursed through them like fire. Voss exhaled slowly. "It's not luck," he murmured, almost to himself. Someone wanted me to see this." The flagship tried one last desperate maneuver, a full frontal assault. Concentrating all firepower into a massive plasma surge aimed to obliterate the Iron Dawn. "Brace for impact," Merrick shouted, but the humans had anticipated it. With a single precise adjustment, Voss redirected the ship. guiding the massive plasma energy around the hull using the gravitational fields of the singularities themselves. The beam passed harmlessly, exploding into the void beyond. The flagship groaned again, lights flickering across alien glyphs and panels as its systems failed one by one. The Iron Dawn remained unscathed, silent, efficient a predator in the void. Voss walked slowly across the bridge, eyes scanning the holomap. Entire squadrons of the Dominion were drifting aimlessly, destroyed by their own momentum or pulled apart by the subtle hand of human creativity. "This is the apex," he said quietly. "All that confidence, all that arrogance, crumbles in silence when faced with focus and will." The flagship's core began to destabilize visibly, energy surging, shields collapsing. One massive pulse and the ship would cease to exist. Its weapons were inoperative, its engines failing, and its crew, once arrogant conquerors, were now scrambling in panic, unsure of how a single human ship had brought them to the edge of annihilation. Captain Ree said, voice trembling slightly, "We can fire the singularity wave directly into their core. This would end it." Voss paused, then nodded. His gaze shifted to the stars beyond the viewport, the vast indifferent blackness that had witnessed the birth and death of civilizations. Somewhere beyond the grasp of human understanding, he sensed the quiet thread of providence, the subtle intelligence that guided survival, that had given him this opportunity. "Do it," he said, voice calm, almost serene. "Show them the edge of human ingenuity." The singularity projectors fired in unison, black voids blooming like silent blossoms, aimed at the heart of the flagship. The Dominion ship shuddered violently, systems failing in waves of cascading energy feedback. Hull plating cracked and peeled as the core destabilized further, a roaring pulse of uncontrolled power threatening to obliterate everything in its radius. Voss stood firm, hands clasped behind his back, observing the spectacle of human ingenuity, executing with precision and purpose. This was not mere brute force. It was calculated creativity, patience, and courage brought to life. Then, with an almost inaudible sigh, the flagship disintegrated. The hull, the crew, the weapons all vanished in a silent collapse, swallowed by the void of the singularities. Nothing remained but drifting wreckage, a faint glow where arrogance had once thrived. The bridge of the Iron Dawn exhaled collectively. Relief, awe, and disbelief mingled in the air. Humans had faced the unthinkable, and through will, ingenuity, and unwavering focus had emerged victorious. Voss finally allowed a small smile. "They laughed," he said softly, almost to himself, "and now." Beyond the viewport, the stars returned to indifferent observation, but something had shifted. Somewhere in the galaxy, civilizations would hear of a single human ship that faced an armada and endured. And somewhere, the quiet intelligence threading through the universe God, if one chose to name it, had allowed humanity to demonstrate that courage. Creativity and will could bend even the most overwhelming odds. The void was silent, yet the silence felt heavy-charged, expectant, as though space itself was holding its breath. Captain Alex Voss stood at the viewport of the Iron Dawn, staring at the scattered remnants of the Vrax flagship. Twisted metal and glowing shards of alien technology drifted like fallen stars, a graveyard of arrogance and miscalculated confidence. "Sir," Merrick said quietly, scanning the holomap, "the remaining Vrax fleet is in disarray. Many vessels are drifting uncontrolled. Communications are sporadic. They're terrified." Voss nodded slowly, the weight of command pressing against his shoulders. Victory. Yes, but fleeting. The galaxy was vast, and the Dominion was resilient. One flagship destroyed, one battle won, yet the war was far from over. Humans had survived this encounter, but survival demanded constant vigilance, creativity, and courage. "Status of the convoy?" he asked. "Shields intact, no casualties," Ree replied. Her eyes reflected a mixture of relief and awe. They expected annihilation. We proved them wrong." Voss allowed himself a quiet exhale. Human ingenuity had once again turned desperation into advantage. But he knew better than to celebrate prematurely. Confidence could be as deadly as the Dominion's plasma. "Signal the convoy," he ordered. "Maintain formation. begin tactical withdrawal toward safe space. The crew obeyed, the ship moving with precise coordination, each motion a dance of survival and strategy. The Iron Dawn had become more than a battleship. It was a statement, a challenge, and a shield, all at once. Voss walked slowly across the bridge, pausing at the central console. His gaze lingered on the stars beyond. He could feel it, something subtle, intangible, yet undeniably present. Not luck, not chance, but the quiet intelligence of a universe that had guided him through countless perils. A whisper of providence that reminded him humans were not alone, even when facing the impossible. "Sir," Merrick's voice broke through his reverie. "Sensors are detecting alien signals, not coordinated, just scattered transmissions. But some of them, they're questioning, doubting, they're asking why one ship could do this." Voss allowed a faint, ironic smile. "They'll learn soon enough. Humans aren't predictable. We improvise. We endure. And we fight differently than anything they've known." The bridge fell silent again, the crew absorbing the enormity of what had happened. Fear and awe mingled in their expressions. The humans had survived, yes, but more than survival. They had made an impression, a mark of their ingenuity and courage that the Dominion could never erase. "Sir," Reese said softly, "there's pattern in the wreckage." One of the singularities didn't collapse fully, drifting toward the Armada's rear ships. Voss's eyes narrowed. This was opportunity. A just course. "We'll guide it," he said. "Let the Dominion see that underestimating humans is fatal." Even in retreat, the crew moved swiftly, calculating trajectories, stabilizing the remaining singularity. It floated like a silent predator, an unseen hand of consequence poised to strike at any moment. As they guided it, Voss allowed a fleeting thought to touch his mind. Earth, battlefields, narrow victories. And now this vast expanse of stars, a theater of survival and defiance. Humans had always endured, always found a way. And even when the odds seemed insurmountable, they had a stubborn spark that no armada, no empire could extinguish. Captain Merrick said, tension sharpening her tone. "Incoming transmission. From the rear fleet, they want to negotiate. They don't understand what just happened." Voss exhaled slowly. "Prepare comes," he said, "and let them hear the truth. We don't ask for respect. We earn it. And we never yield." The transmission flickered onto the main screen. Alien faces, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and incredulity. They had mocked humanity, laughed at their insignificance. Now their arrogance was gone, replaced with doubt, a tiny, fragile ember of understanding that humans were not to be underestimated. Voss studied the transmission for a long moment. "They don't know us," he said softly, "and they never will, until they understand what it means to face a human when survival demands everything." Ree glanced at him, with uncertainty and curiosity mingling in her expression. "Do we let them retreat?" Voss turned, his eyes calm but burning with purpose. "We don't give mercy. We don't need to. Let the lesson linger. Let them think. Let them fear. We've made our statement. It's enough for now." The crew exhaled collectively, understanding the quiet wisdom in his command. Humanity did not seek vengeance blindly. It sought survival, cleverness, and courage, a lesson that would echo across the Dominion for years to come. Voss allowed himself one final glance at the stars. Somewhere, in the infinite expanse, he felt the subtle presence of order, of intelligence, guiding the chaos into meaning. The humans had prevailed, yet the battle had only hinted at the trials to come. As the convoy slipped into relative safety and the Dominion fleet reeled in confusion, Voss felt a shiver of anticipation. The galaxy had witnessed the first strike, but the war was far from over, and the humans' true test was just beginning. The Iron Dawn moved through the void with quiet authority, single steel heartbeat guiding the convoy away from the remnants of the Dominion's scattered fleet. Captain Alex Voss remained at the viewport, eyes tracing the distant stars that stretched like a vast canvas of infinite possibilities and infinite danger. The Dominion had been humbled, yet they were far from broken. Even in retreat, their presence lingered like a shadow across the sector. Voss knew better than to underestimate them. Numbers, arrogance, and alien cunning could recover. And he had seen what desperation could drive humans to do, but he also knew that the Dominion's reckoning was only a matter of time. Status report, he commanded, voice steady, almost serene. Merrick leaned over the holomap. Convoy intact, morale high. The fleet's rear guard is stabilizing. But sensors are detecting residual disturbances, gravitational anomalies, unexplained energy spikes. Could be collateral effects from the singularities? Voss's gaze hardened. Collateral or not, they had left a mark. The Dominion had learned that humanity could strike in ways no logic had predicted. Good, he said quietly. Let them wonder. Let them fear. Fear teaches more than firepower ever could. A pause settled over the bridge, the quiet after the storm carrying its own weight. The crew moved with careful precision, eyes scanning the void for any sign of a lurking threat. Even with the Dominion scattered, vigilance remained their ally. Humans understood that survival required foresight, patience, and an unshakable will. Sir, Rhys said, her voice low, incoming transmission. Not from the fleet. From the Dominion High Command. They want parley. They want terms. Voss's expression remained unreadable. He leaned against the viewport, fingers tracing patterns on the glass as if reading the stars themselves. They don't get it, he murmured. Terms are 4 equals. We have survived. That's our message. Nothing else is required. The transmission flickered onto the main screen. The alien faces were tense, eyes wide, lines of command etched in panic and confusion. The Vrax, so confident, now seemed fragile, uncertain. They had mocked humanity, laughed at insignificance, and now faced a force they could not comprehend. Voss studied the transmission in silence. Humans were not perfect, not invincible, but they had something the Dominion could never quantify: ingenuity, courage, and the unrelenting spark of defiance. Let them speak, he said finally. We'll listen, but we won't bend. The words hung in the bridge like a quiet hymn of resolve. Humans did not yield. They did not bargain when the lesson was clear. Their victories were not about destruction. They were about teaching a truth. Underestimation of humanity carried consequences. Merrick glanced at him, curiosity and awe in her gaze. Sir, do we respond? Voss shook his head. No words. Silence says more than rhetoric ever could. Let the Dominion contemplate. Let them face the calm after the storm, and realize that this calm is deliberate, not weak. Outside, the stars seemed to stretch endlessly, indifferent witnesses to the humans' quiet authority. Yet in that silence, the universe whispered subtle signs of guidance, tiny threads of intelligence, unseen but felt, weaving meaning through chaos. Voss allowed himself a fleeting thought of gratitude, acknowledgement of the force that had allowed him and his crew to survive the impossible. He turned back to the bridge, voice soft, but carrying the weight of certainty. Prepare for any eventuality. The Dominion may test us again. We've only seen their first strike, and they are wounded, but they are not finished. Humans must be ready, always ready. Courage is meaningless if it isn't paired with vigilance and creativity. The crew moved in quiet harmony, a ballet of preparation and discipline. Humans thrived in these moments, the tension between calm and anticipation, the balance between fear and action. Every heartbeat aboard the Iron Dawn carried the knowledge that survival demanded more than firepower, demanded mind, spirit, and relentless resolve. Sir, Rhys said softly, almost to herself, there, analyzing us, trying to predict what we'll do next. They can't. No algorithm, no calculation can account for human ingenuity or human will. Voss allowed a faint, proud smile. Let them try, he said. Let them understand that the humans they mocked are not slaves to expectation, not pawns of fate. We make our own destiny, and it is sharper than any weapon they wield. The transmission ended without response, leaving a void that was heavier than silence. The Dominion had no words to match what they had witnessed. They had laughed, mocked, and assumed superiority, and now, faced with a single human battleship that had shattered expectations, they were left questioning every assumption they had ever held. Voss exhaled slowly, letting the tension leave his body for a fraction of a moment. Outside, the stars continued their indifferent watch, yet humanity's defiance had left an echo in the void. Somewhere in that darkness, the unseen hand of Providence, subtle, quiet, eternal, had guided them to this point. Not luck, not chance. Something greater, something beyond comprehension, had allowed them to survive. Prepare for course adjustments, Voss said finally, his voice low but steady. We move forward. The Dominion will not forget today, and neither will we. Stay vigilant. Keep sharp. Humanity has more to prove and more to survive. The crew nodded, their movements precise and confident. Each human aboard the Iron Dawn understood the gravity of what had transpired. They had faced annihilation and survived. But the galaxy was vast, and the real test, the kind that would define legends, was still ahead. The Iron Dawn glided through the void, the stars stretching like silver threads across the infinite darkness. Captain Alex Voss stood at the viewport, silent and calculating, as if he could see the future written in the constellations themselves. The Dominion fleet had scattered, their arrogance shattered, but Voss knew the galaxy had more in store. The Vrax were cunning. Even wounded, they could regroup, adapt, and strike again. Sarari said softly, scanning the holographic displays. I'm detecting residual energy spikes, small, localized disturbances. Not weapons fire. Not yet. Something else is coming. Voss's eyes narrowed. Prepare full defensive matrix. Sensors on maximum sweep. If they think they've learned us, they're wrong. The crew moved with quiet efficiency, a rhythm born of experience and discipline. Each station was a note in a symphony of survival. Humans thrived in these moments, focused, deliberate, aware of the peril, yet empowered by ingenuity. Then the first signal came, a sudden, sharp pulse rippling through space. A gravitational anomaly unlike anything the crew had seen. The convoy shivered as if space itself had exhaled, and the Iron Dawn's hull vibrated faintly under the invisible force. Merrick frowned at the console. It's a trap, she whispered. The Dominion. They've anticipated our withdrawal. They're converging silently, using residual gravity distortions from the singularities we left behind. Voss's expression hardened. This was no longer just battle, it was psychological warfare, a test of human resolve. They underestimate patience and perception, he said softly. They don't realize humans can turn their own arrogance into opportunity. The Iron Dawn adjusted course, weaving through the void like a predator among the shadows. The small fleet behind them mirrored their movements, shields flickering in synchronized pulses. The Vrax ships appeared gradually, emerging from the warped fields of gravity like predators from mist. Silence stretched across space, thick with tension. Sir, multiple vessels are locking onto the convoy, Rhys said, voice tight. They're not attacking yet, just observing. Waiting for a mistake. Voss nodded slowly. Humans thrived under pressure. Mistakes were opportunities, and patience was as lethal as any weapon. Let them wait, he said. Control the tempo. The first to act recklessly loses. The bridge fell into a tense calm, punctuated only by the soft hum of the ship and distant beacons of alien light. Voss walked among his crew, eyes sharp, voice calm. Remember, he said quietly, we are not just fighting ships. We are defending ingenuity, courage, and will. This is what it means to be human. We survive not because we are strongest, but because we are relentless, creative, and unafraid. A flicker of light caught his eye, something subtle, almost imperceptible, but undeniably moving. A small scout vessel had emerged from the shadows, approaching the convoy. The Vrax were testing again, probing defenses, seeking a weakness. Deploy countermeasures, Voss commanded. Not for destruction, show them their assumptions are wrong. The Iron Dawn released a cascade of artificial singularities, small but precise, pulling the scout vessel off course before it could reach its target. It drifted harmlessly into the void, a silent lesson delivered without violence. Merrick exhaled in relief. They didn't expect that. The Dominion is confused. Voss allowed a faint, approving smile. Humans are never predictable, he said. We adapt, improvise, endure. That's our strength. That's what they cannot calculate. The Dominion flagship remained in the distance, observing the chaos, unable to comprehend how a single human ship could manipulate space, strategy, and psychology so effectively. They had underestimated creativity, courage, and the quiet force that guided the humans, the invisible hand that had carried them through impossible odds. And somewhere, in the subtle fabric of the universe, Voss felt it again, the quiet presence, guiding and shaping the improbable into survival. Not luck, not chance. Something greater, a thread of order and intelligence woven into the chaos of the void. "Prepare for escalation," he said finally. "They will test us again. Humans do not falter, but we must be ready for anything. Courage alone is not enough. Creativity, patience, and faith will be our shields." The Iron Dawn shifted course once more, leading the convoy through the labyrinth of gravitational distortions, the Dominion watching and calculating, unsure of the humans' next move. Every pulse, every subtle shift of energy was a statement. Arrogance dies first in silence, and ingenuity is the deadliest weapon. Voss stood at the viewport, silent, listening to the stars, feeling the pulse of survival. "Let them come," he whispered. "We are human." The void stretched endlessly, indifferent to the turmoil of empires and the courage of mortals. Captain Alex Voss stood at the viewport of the Iron Dawn, his reflection faint against the stars, a solitary figure poised on the edge of history. Ahead, the remnants of the Dominion fleet repositioned, cautious yet brimming with the arrogance that had defined them for centuries. "Sir," Ree said, voice taut, "they're consolidating. We can sense the flagship, their command vessel still operational. They're preparing something." Voss's jaw tightened. Every instinct told him the final test had arrived. The Dominion had learned patience and observation, but they had not learned human unpredictability. Numbers were meaningless against ingenuity, courage, and will. Humans did not fight like predictable machines. They fought like a storm that struck where least expected. "Status on the convoy?" Voss asked. "All units stable, shields at full capacity," Merrick replied. "Morale is high. They trust us." Voss allowed himself a brief glance at the stars. Somewhere in the infinite expanse, he felt the subtle, quiet hand of guidance. Not luck, not chance, something far beyond comprehension had led them here. He did not call it God aloud, but the presence was undeniable, a thread of order that stitched survival into the chaos of the universe. "Prepare final wave," Voss ordered. Singularities aligned. Target the flagship and its support vessels. "This'll be swift, silent?" "Absolute." The bridge crew moved with precision, every motion rehearsed, yet alive with instinct. They had survived impossible odds before, but the final confrontation demanded everything they had learned: strategy, patience, creativity, courage. Outside, the Dominion flagship loomed like a dark mountain in the void, energy pulsing along its hull. Its crew had learned fear, doubt creeping into their calculations. Confidence had shattered in silence, replaced by hesitation. They were powerful, yes, but human cunning had already undermined every assumption they had made. Voss tapped a series of commands into the console. The singularities pulsed, expanding outward with subtle, invisible precision. One by one, escort ships faltered, engines stalling, weapon systems failing. The Dominion's formation dissolved like sand through fingers, and the flagship drifted, unbalanced, vulnerable. "Sir," Merrick whispered, awe threading her voice. "There. Disoriented. Can't recover in time." Voss's eyes were calm, unflinching. Good, let them see the consequence of underestimating humans. He activated the final projector, directing the singularities at the core of the flagship. The black voids rippled like liquid shadows, tugging at the vessel with a force unseen yet undeniable. Hull plating warped, energy conduits overloaded, shields flickered and collapsed. The flagship shuddered violently, massive sections twisting and cracking under the invisible strain. The Dominion crew scrambled in panic, their confidence evaporating, their arrogance undone by the ingenuity of a single human ship. "Steady," Voss murmured, voice low. "Hold until the moment is perfect. Let them understand we do not fight like them. We do not yield. Endure." And then, in a moment of serene inevitability, the flagship imploded. Energy cascaded inward, collapsing the hull silently into the singularities. Escort ships disintegrated in sequence, unable to maintain formation or trajectory. Entire fleets vanished in calculated quiet, leaving nothing but drifting debris and faint, glowing remnants of what had once been arrogance incarnate. The bridge of the Iron Dawn exhaled collectively, not in celebration, but in reverent recognition. Humans had prevailed, not through sheer numbers, not through luck, but through creativity, courage, and relentless will. Voss walked slowly across the bridge, letting the weight of the moment settle. Outside, the stars remained indifferent witnesses, yet somewhere in the vast expanse, the quiet thread of intelligence that had guided survival hummed softly. Undeniable, yet subtle. Merrick turned to him, voice trembling with awe. They laughed at humanity. And now, Voss said softly, eyes fixed on the void, the galaxy knows. Laughter dies fastest in the shadow of human steel and human will. For a long moment, silence reigned aboard the Iron Dawn. The convoy drifted safely in its wake. The Dominion's arrogance shattered, their fleet broken and humiliated. Humanity had faced annihilation, stared down the impossible, and emerged victorious not through perfection, but through determination, creativity, and courage. Voss looked to his crew, pride quiet but profound. "We are human," he said. "As long as we endure, no force in the galaxy can truly understand a source stop us." He turned back to the stars, the infinite black stretching beyond comprehension. Somewhere beyond sight, a subtle order threaded through chaos, guiding, balancing, witnessing.
Not a voice.
Not a presence in form, but undeniable in effect. Humans had survived, thrived, and triumphed under the impossible. And somewhere in the dark, the humans did not just fight, they endured, they created. And the galaxy learned that courage, ingenuity, and relentless will were forces even the proudest armadas could not mock. The stars watched silently, and in their silent light, humanity's shadow stretched longer than anyone had dared imagine.